am a floral designer based in Providence, Rhode Island. I have a business called Ephemera, and we do flowers and photography for weddings and events in Rhode Island and throughout New England. And in between weddings, I always try to get out to the garden. We have a reclaimed property where we grow our own flowers and foliage for use in our weddings. But also I think it's really important to make flowers just for ourselves. And the nice thing about going out and just seeing what's blooming is that you have the constraint of what's available, but you also have the creativity to use whatever flowers and colors you want. So I thought that we'd go around the garden and see what's blooming. So before we get out there, 2 things that you should know about how to cut and condition your flowers that you get out of the garden. So first, you want to take some clippers, any kind are fine. I like the ones that are a little bit more like scissors because they're just less bulky and easier to manage. These are from Ocean State Job Lot. Really anything that you want to use is fine. And then you either want to get a bucket, or here I'm just using a mason jar because we're not cutting that many flowers. But if you're cutting a lot, obviously you want to use a bucket that's clean. Oftentimes people will bleach their buckets to get rid of any possible bacteria. But here I'm just cutting into a mason jar filled with water, cool water. And I'm cutting the stems pretty long so that I have room to work with them later. And it's generally better to cut in the early morning so that the flowers aren't kind of exhausted by the summer sun by the time that you get to them. And you really want to cut them and then put them directly in the water so that they can start to drink. The longer a flower stem is out of water, the more that cut edge starts to seal over, and then the harder it is for the flower to drink and stay hydrated. Therefore, the more quicker they are to die. So you want to cut them immediately and put them straight in water. So I was away for the weekend and just got back to find all of these gladiolas blooming, which I love. They are a bulb that you can plant in the spring, and then if you want them to reliably come back, you dig them up in the fall. And they, I think, are just super striking by themselves in a vase. They last a while because each one of these blooms will open all the way up to the top. And they usually come in very large sizes, full-scale glads, 4 feet tall. These are the mini ones, which are a lot more manageable if you want to make a small arrangement. So I'm going to pick a few blue hydrangea that we have hiding back here. It's that point in the summer where everything is starting to get a little overgrown and crazy, and you have to find things among the weeds or among the overgrowth. But nothing says summer really like blue hydrangea in Rhode Island. So another thing that's really important to think about when you're making an arrangement is it's not just flowers. You also really, I would say, need greens. Of course you can make an arrangement without them, but they just add a lot of movement and a lot of naturalness that's really, really nice. And you can be creative in thinking about what kind of greens you want to use too. So I'm going to pick some echinacea as well because that's what's blooming right now. The beginning of August is kind of a funky season for my garden in particular because we're right before the dahlias, the lilies, and a lot of other of our kind of big showy flowers that finish blooming. So really at this time of year you get to appreciate the kind of like more understated wildflower type of flowers. In this case, echinacea, which is actually a really good medicinal herb, and also something that the pollinators love. So, just gonna grab a few of these. Okay, so now we get to the super fun part, which is actually making an arrangement. And I gotta be honest, I picked all this stuff, don't really have a plan in mind, but that's the cool part. So we're just gonna go in and make. I'm starting off with a vase, round cylinder guy filled with water. And I think we're gonna use a hydrangea vase because we have these nice fluffy blue guys. And hydrangea is like the floral designer's secret, especially in the summer when it's just blooming everywhere. It really makes a nice fluffy vase. Like a web, if you will, that you can weave other flowers through. So there we go. Got a little base. And then I'm going to feed in some greens. So these are actually hydrangea leaves. And as you put anything in, you want to make sure that the stems are going pretty far down to the bottom of the vase, because you want to think about the fact that over the next few days, the flowers are going to drink. So you want the stem to be as low as possible, so that even when the water level rises, there's still water. Even so, it's always good to check your arrangement, you know, after a day or two and see if it needs any extra water. So, now that we've got this fluffy base, this is really going to give us kind of the stability and structure in the vase so that things don't just fall apart. There's all sorts of mechanics and techniques that florists will use, and oftentimes people will use floral foam to make sure that everything's staying exactly where it goes. But when you're making something in a vase with water, there's a lot more room for the flowers to move, which can be a really cool thing. So I'm going to throw in a couple of these sedum guys because I love their little texture. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put in a gladiolus now. I'm going to pull off these bottom couple just because I want to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm putting the stems in fairly quickly after I cut them, again so that the flowers don't keel over and have a hard time drinking. Since we're working with really strong colors here too, I picked a little bit of this Japanese maple that's outside the front, just to kind of bridge the colors a bit. I feel like sometimes dark browns and or they're kind of like rich dark tones, like foliage especially, provides a way to even out the distance between those two colors, if that makes sense. Make it a little bit feel more natural. And when you get something funky like this, I cut off the top of this stem, you can just peel off these bottom layers, and then presto, you have a little guy that you can stick on the edge. So maybe something like that. And then obviously you might just want to look down and just make sure that that stem's coming down to the bottom. That'll make your life easier later. And the beautiful thing again about this hydrangea is you can just kind of weave things through it. So it's really a flexible plant. There's all these little basically like miniature branches inside, and so you can feel free to gently manipulate those so that you can stick things right through them. And that'll give you a lot of stability and support in the arrangement. God, I'm so excited for dahlia season to really, really get going. But in the meantime, it's just going to be a little bit of an accent flower for us here and there. Got a little bit of this Rose of Sharon too. I don't work with this often, so I'm not sure quite how well it's going to hold up. But also this, if it's going to get limp, like this one's looking a little bit limp, so I might not use that one. But I might use this one. And again, making arrangements for yourself is the best way to figure out what flowers will hold up well in a vase, what you like, that sort of thing. This is really the perfect time to experiment. Now I'm going to throw in some of this delphinium. I love how strong this color is. And it's bloomed like 4 times this season. It keeps coming back. Sometimes when you get a stem like this that's just like pretty long, just peel off these bottom guys. And I'm just kind of loosely letting these guys hopefully relax a little bit out, but at the same time creating these kind of like different points of structure. And if you want to, if this is like too spiky for you, you can go in and just clip it down. And a lesson that I am always learning is that you do not have to use everything. that you pick. Oftentimes I will get a little bit greedy and be like, well, I picked it, I have to use it, or I have it, I have to use it. But really, you have the opportunity to put in exactly what you want and what you need. And there's no harm or shame in keeping in other stuff for a few little bud vases or little bottles around the house, that sort of thing. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this morning. I hope that this inspires you to get out there and cut whatever you can find and make your own arrangement. Don't take it too seriously. Have fun. Talk to you soon. Bye.